Okay, we're here in the How to Do It segment, and we're going to talk about the use of monitoring tools, which is a critically important part of the nutrition farming process. We're talking about removing the guesswork. We're talking about bringing some precision into our nutrition to optimize yields, to reduce problems, to increase profitability. So I favour 3 or 4 little tools, but the starting point, all of them require plant sap, and that becomes the difficult part. We're sitting here in Collins macadamia orchard, and there is really nothing more difficult than macadamia leaves. If you pick them up, they're as dry as a bone and they're like a piece of leather. And you think, how on earth am I going to get? So typically, as we sort of described previously, we would bunch together some leaves and squeeze them through a garlic crusher to get the juice out, and that is completely impossible with, and there's a secondary tool that's sort of a vice grip type tool that can put more pressure on, but that won't work with macadamias. And so we developed a little tool that's quite valuable because it means, you know, very handy anyway in the farming scenario, because you can get blood from a stone, literally, well, maybe not, but you can get, well, we'll test it with the macadamias, the hardest of all these, quite probably. And let's see if we can squeeze some juice out of them by applying as much as 2 tons of pressure. And basically the concept is that we are ending up in the little well on the base of this with hopefully, you know, a half teaspoon of juice that we can then use for monitoring. So let's do that. Let's grab some leaf samples, and of course what we're going to do for all leaf testing, the concept is you take the first fully developed leaf. So you've got the first small one, second, third, fourth leaf back from the tip is the leaf that all systems, all testing systems are based upon that leaf. So the criteria have all been determined on where minerals have moved into that leaf, and they all move at different levels around the plant, sort of thing. So that's the leaf that we use, and that's the same leaf that we're going to use if we're going to test sap pH, or if we're going to use a refractometer, or a potassium meter or a nitrogen meter, some of the meters we're about to discuss. So let's get ourselves some of those leaf samples, and let's see if this little machine can pull blood from a stone. So fourth leaf back, the fully developed leaf is about that one there. And so we're going to do that several times. First fully developed leaf is there, or there actually, and there, there. Don't mind me denuding your tree, do you? And that's probably will be as much as we need for this testing process. And then maybe Carl can give me a little bit of help here. We're going to unscrew this. And inside the center of this, we're going to brush up a little bit of this leaf, and let's see if we can get something out of it. Try and bruise it a little before we wedge it in there. Not too much, but we'll see. Okay, now we've set this up. And now we put the pressure on and see if we can extract anything at all from these very, very dry leaves. Very, very handy tool to have if you're a macadamia grower. Have you got one, Colin? Yeah. Yeah, you'll see how it works. Well, hopefully. Fingers crossed you'll see how it works. Carl's got enough strength to put all the pressure on there. You go down as hard as you can twist it down, basically. Nope. And that's probably going to do it. Now let's unscrew her and see what we've got. Fingers crossed, you've got to keep it that so down. In the base, we've got our few little drops of juice, exactly what we needed. You can just see I won't tip it because we'll lose it, but in the little well at the bottom, we've got sort of 1/4 or a half teaspoon of juice, so we've got a starting point. So we're going to use a little pipette now to transfer that to one of the meters, and we'll begin with the sap pH meter. Now let me explain, here's the sap pH meter. Let me explain why you would choose sap pH and why you would utilize one of these meters. Now, it comes from an American researcher, a brilliant man called Bruce Tainier, who's no longer with us. And Bruce discovered that SAP pH was a tremendously powerful guideline. So the concept of SAP pH is that we're looking for, what Bruce discovered was that a healthy, well-balanced tree or crop, and he argues that it refers to all crops. It can be a field crop, it can be a vegetable crop, it can be a fruit or a vine crop. 6.4 is what we're seeking, and that's the healthy, well-balanced plant. If it's less than 6.4, it means it's lacking one of the key, most abundant alkalizing minerals. So we're talking calcium, magnesium, potassium, the three minerals that we call the soil sweeteners, the three minerals that determine soil pH are the same minerals that determine, their presence determines the SAP pH. And sodium's in there as well, but less likely to be involved. So really it comes down to calcium, magnesium or potassium if you've got less than 6.4. And if you've got, say, 5.4, as a SAP pH, your likelihood of fungal disease is pretty much guaranteed. There is no doubt during that crop cycle that you will have pressure from fungi. So the low SAP pH directly relates to likely fungal pressure. And conversely, what does it mean if we've got a high SAP pH? High SAP pH, like 7.4 versus 6.4, means you're more predisposed towards insects. And the link here relates to either too much nitrogen in the equation or too little phosphorus or sulfur. And we're talking really about a seesaw. If we talk about the acid-alkaline balance, that you can understand that if you lost the two acid-forming minerals of phosphorus and sulfur, same in our body, if you're acidic, you've been eating too much meat, which is predominated by phosphorus and sulfur, versus vegetables, which are calcium, magnesium and potassium, and you've got your balance out of whack. And that's why measuring your urine pH can be of tremendous value. So you've got your seesaw and you've dropped in sulfur and phosphorus, and up comes the top end of the seesaw, and hence the pH goes to 7.4 or 7.6, and your likelihood of insect pressure increases. So that's basically the concept, very valuable, sort of like a refractometer, but it's probably a little more precise than a refractometer in terms of defining likely fungal pressure, because we do see that very strong correlation between a low SAP pH and high fungal pressure. So let's take a little bit of this juice. We just need 3 drops on the SAP. Now there's a calibrating fluid that you calibrate all these meters before you use them. It's just a few little drops, push calibration, a smiling face comes up. You're now calibrated, which we've already done, and now we're going to put 3 drops onto the face of this. And it's got to run between those 2 points. To that point there, that's it. So the two things have got to bridge. And what we're seeing here is a very big, strong debate within the industry relative to Bruce's argument that everything should be 6.4, because it simply isn't. And there are some crops, and macadamias are one of them, that are definitely lower. Grapevines are 5.4. Macadamias, some argue, might be lower than 5, and part of the reason is that they're a native, and the argument is that they prefer a little bit of acidity in the soil, so there's sort of almost naturally a lower calcium level, but the reading here is 4.5, and so we'd say that's low, and we suspect that there's, well, basically there's calcium, magnesium or potassium. Through a process of elimination, we can determine which of those 3 minerals are the most likely culprits. So something's lacking, we're arguing, calcium, magnesium or potassium. Now our second little reading will be to look through a refractometer, which is a really crude calcium meter, where we want to see that blurry distinction between the 2 hemispheres. So that's what we'll do next. We're problem solving here. We know we've got a lack of calcium, magnesium or potassium in the soil. Okay, so if you recall, we tested our SAP pH. We had a SAP pH of 4.5, suggesting some kind of alkalizing minerals that are lacking. We talked about calcium, magnesium or potassium, and we talked about a process of elimination to try and determine which of those 3 minerals is, and it could be more than one of them, but which of them are the likely candidates. And so the next step was to squeeze a little bit of our sap onto the face of a refractometer and to use a refractometer as a crude calcium meter. And as I mentioned when we talked about refractometers, that we want to be looking through that screen, the 2 hemispheres where they meet each other on the Brix axis. We want that to be a fuzzy, very fuzzy line that you can't really tell if it's 12 or 13 because it's just a fuzz. We don't want a sharp distinction. A sharp distinction is almost always a lack of calcium. And of course the minerals that calcium governs the uptake of, so it's really a lack of nutrient density if you've got that sharp line. And then always the sharp line will be a low Brix level because you're measuring that lack of minerals, that lack of nutrient density. So let's see how we're going, to see if we can determine that. And oh my goodness, we've got quite a high reading here. We've got a reading of 19, which is nice, and it's not screaming the calcium deficient, but calcium's definitely a player. There would definitely be a benefit from getting some calcium into the equation here. But now we're going to look to see if there's more than one mineral involved. We're suggesting that there's definitely a need for more calcium, but we're going to check potassium. Now, we'll talk about the potassium meter for a moment, because we're talking about what is arguably the most important from a financial perspective, because you can be as idealistic as you choose, but it comes down to making money in this profession of growing food and being profitable. And the more profitable we can be, the greater the outcome, like you could argue. So, and it's a very, very difficult profession. There's so many challenges. So to try and narrow that down, potassium is a huge player. I refer to potassium as the money mineral, because basically that mineral governs the size of things. It governs the size of your nuts in this instance, or the size of your fruit, and the sweetness of the fruit, because it governs the carrying of sugar into those fruits. So you'll see citrus that is mandarins that are lacking potassium will not have the sweetness that we're chasing, and we'll see grain smaller than it should be, and so forth. So it's a really, really important mineral. And very often we see a scenario that even though we think we've taken care of a bit of potassium at the end of the season, what we see when we're monitoring is that the moment fruiting begins, in this case nut formation, the moment nut formation begins, there's a drawdown, a really huge drawdown. We can be monitoring with a meter and have readings of say 2,500, which is acceptable in the vegetative stage, and then we get flowering and we start to form nuts, and 2,500 can drop down to 800 or 900. And now you're sucking so much potassium at that point that people don't realise just how much is utilised and how important potassium is in the second half of the season. So to have fingertip control with a meter gives you the potential to manage the money mineral much more efficiently and become more profitable as part of the outcome from that. So we can monitor, and there are guidelines, rough guidelines for various crops of where we need to be, and it's quite different from flowering onwards compared to the vegetative stage in terms of our potassium requirements. But there's also a very handy thing, and it's one of the things that makes this meter so user-friendly on the farm, is the fact that you can test, because potassium is so mobile. Standard tissue tests for potassium are notoriously unreliable, because you're measuring that first fully developed leaf, and you're measuring where the potassium, the most mobile of all minerals within the plant, where potassium has moved to. So potassium is the most mobile and the second most abundant. A lot of potassium in a plant, and it moves to the growing tips where it's required, or to the nuts to size them up, or the fruit or whatever. And we're measuring that first fully developed leaf, we're measuring where it's moved to. And what you can do with the meter is measure the lower leaf and that first fully developed leaf, and the readings need to be the same. And the moment we see the bottom leaf with a significantly lower, more than 10% difference, so more than 10% lower in potassium, we can safely assume we need potassium in that crop. And it gives us that control in the field at any point. Top leaf, bottom leaf need to be the same, 10% less in the lower leaf, you need to come in with some potassium. So we're going to do that here, of course, with the struggle of trying to extract leaves. We're going to take, we've already got ourselves a little bit of juice stored inside this pipette from the first fully developed leaves. Now we're going to grab those lower leaves and extract with this high pressure extractor, and then we're going to compare them for potassium. So we'll do that now. So if we take a growing branch, we're going to go right back to the oldest leaves on that branch. You see we've got the tips here and the new growth, and we're going to go right back to the back of the branch to grab the older leaves. Okay, we've got our old leaves, and we'll go through that process of extraction once again. Might use Colin with his bodybuilding skills here. No one's ever broken one of these. We're about to see whether Colin can.
I can see some good engineering.
So when we get down as tight as we can get it, we'll get Colin to give it one last turn, and that'll extract. That last turn's the big one. Okay, now give it to him. Just one more turn, Colin, if you can.
There we go.
Colin, of course, was once Mr. Australia, weren't you, or somewhere close?
Yeah.
I reckon that would get. That's going to do the job.
I reckon that's going to do
We're
it.
gonna-
Now we're going to do it, haven't we?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I can see it overflowing now down below this.
Can you? That's good.
Yeah, she's
Oh, we've got a heap in there. Just to start out if you can, that's it. Beautiful.
a bit of overflow.
We've got a little overflow. We've got plenty of juice from the old leaves. So now we're going to compare. Got to go a bit back on that one. So the reading on the new leaves is 2,700 parts per million. There's a smiling face there. So we'll clear this out with a bit of water and a little bit of tissue. We'll just gently, they're quite sensitive sensors here, so we just very gently pad that out, and then we're going to try. So we're talking 2,700 on the first leaf, and we're looking at the bottom leaf, and we're going to compare them. And what we've got on the bottom leaf is 2,400. So remember, we're looking at that 10% variation, and we're talking 2,400, 2,700. It's only just borderline, but so it's not bad.
Yep.
In that context. In fact, it's crept up now, so it's less than 10%. So yeah, so potassium is not the issue at this point.
Okay.
So we've determined that, which is quite handy.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the potassium meter. You know, as we said, invaluable to have fingertip control of the money mineral. And the final meter that we're going to have a look at is the nitrogen meter. And the story with nitrogen, of course, the most abundant mineral in the plant, so hugely important. I mean, amino acids, proteins that drive plant immunity are all based upon nitrogen or built from nitrogen. It's been recognised its importance, and of course we've tended to use and abuse it because it is the most abundant mineral and it is hugely important. If we underdo nitrogen, there's a massive range of prices to pay. If we overdo it, the most common outcome is that it shuts down, apart from a whole range of other negatives. That oversupply of that very important mineral nitrogen shuts down potassium, it shuts down calcium, it can affect boron. There's a significant price to pay. In fact, losing 3 minerals that are intimately linked to plant resilience, you've just compromised by putting too much of a good thing on, basically, and we call that the moron effect. A little bit works good, let's put more on, and that's very, very common with nitrogen fertilisation. So a meter allows us a little more precision. We can figure where the crop does best, and that will vary in different soil types and different organic matter. Remember, if you've got high organic matter, as you've got here, Colin, you know, you've got this thing called nitrogen release, the estimated nitrogen release, where there's a supply of nitrogen constantly, both nitrate and ammonium nitrogen, that's coming from that high humus level. You've got that reservoir there. And so that's going to be quite different in terms of where your nitrogen needs to be compared to someone with 1% organic matter and you've got 9 or 10%. But for example, so the meter is, you know, in different conditions, different soil types, different climates. For your farm, you need to determine where your sweet spot is, and that's what the nitrogen meter allows you to do, and that will be different. You need much more nitrogen during the vegetative stage, and nitrogen falls right back and potassium takes over from flowering onwards in terms of those 2 most abundant minerals. So the meter lets you find where your sweet spot is, and you might correlate that sweet spot by saying, okay, here's the crop's looking the best I've seen it. The sap pH is perfect. You know, the potassium readings are perfect. You might do a traditional leaf test to confirm it, but then you've determined that in your conditions, your sweet spot is 2,600 or 30 or 2,200 or 1,800, whatever it is for your crop. And you don't go above or below that. That's what you maintain. Yep. And that gives you control of that hugely important, most abundant mineral. And you don't overdo it, because it's more common to overdo it than it is to undo it. The problem with overdoing it, particularly if it's urea that converts to nitrates and is uptaken with nitrates, is the fact that nitrates are uptaken with water. And if you've overdone nitrogen, you've got a lot of water that's uptaken the nitrate component, and that dilutes. It's a huge problem with hydroponic food because they only use calcium nitrate and potassium nitrate. And so that dilution means that most hydroponic lettuces have a Brix of 1.5. Should be 12, they're just 1.5 because they're filled with water and they've been diluted with all of the nitrate that's gone in there. So that, of course, becomes a calling card for insects in the case of your orchard. If you've overused nitrogen, if you've got too much nitrate and too much water and diluted the entire Brix, which you haven't done because you've got that nice Brix of 19. But the meter is a very, very handy meter just so you can have fingertip control of that very important mineral. So we'll just, same story. We're going to take the first fully developed leaf. I think we've already crushed some, so we'll see what we've got here. Just wait till it settles down. So we've got a reading of, well, we need to look for the guidelines, but I would suspect it's in the kind of zone that we're looking for. It's 2200. You multiply that by 10. It's 2200, and I would suspect that I don't know because we need to check guidelines for this, which I'm not familiar with them offhand, but we'd suspect that nitrogen's fine here. It's certainly not overdone, so which is great. And that confirms it sort of cross-references with the high Brix level and so forth, which you wouldn't have if you had high nitrogen. So, okay, so that's the 3 meters, the SAP pH meter, the potassium meter, the nitrogen meter. Really handy to have a little kit. We have a little kit that the agronomists carry around. Your refractometer, of course, your microbiometer. You've basically got a nice little way to measure and monitor minerals and microbes. And then you can sort of, you're measuring soil life and you're measuring the fungi to bacteria ratio with the microbiometer, and you can confirm that or add to that a leaf test at least before flowering, if not more often. A tissue test before flowering, massively important. It's the business end of the season. You want to get everything right to maximize your yield potential. So you ask the plant, what do you want? And you apply whatever's required according to that leaf test at that critically important time. Okay, thank you for listening.